Welcome, my friend, to Next Level Change Success. I'm Therese, a change strategist and practitioner with over 20 years of experience designing and delivering impactful change programs across various industries. In this podcast, I share real-world practical strategies to help you create and deliver positive change experiences, whether you're a leader, practitioner, or someone looking to bring new ways of working to life. In today's fast-paced world, change is constant. Here we focus on how you can put people at the centre of your change strategy, because people with a sense of purpose are the most important link in driving performance. So if you're ready to create meaningful change and achieve all the success that comes with it, keep listening. Together, let's change the conversation and take it to the next level. Hello. Welcome to another episode of Next Level Change Success. My name is Therese, and I'm the founder of myvirtualchangemanager.com. I'd like to acknowledge that I'm recording on Tharawal country and pay my respects to the traditional owners and custodians on the land on which I am recording. So today it's all about the concept of calm when it comes to change. So whether you're leading change, influencing or managing change, having a calm demeanor, being able to be centered in times of chaos is how you will always perform better. So when you're new to change, one of the lessons you learn pretty early on is as you're approaching a go live, anxiety and stress is on the increase. And not just for yourself, but also for the project people, for stakeholders. And depending upon how high profile the change is, the more high profile, the more risk, the more anxiety that senior stakeholders will have, the more pressure that's applied to the project team, the change practitioners, and the questions get asked and things get interrogated, reinterrogated. And I've talked about in prior episodes the nervousness and the sweaty palms that executives can get before a go live. If they haven't really been paying too much attention prior to the go live, they're certainly going to all of a sudden realize what's at risk when they go live. And unless they are assured that things are in place, that risk is managed, that there's a change plan in place, they could pause the whole program. And that has definitely happened in the past. They put it on pause, waited until they're feeling comfortable. And I've talked before about the role of the change manager, making sure that by having readiness checks in place, showing evidence of who's been briefed, how they've been briefed, who's been trained, their confidence levels of those that they've trained, and then making sure that there's clear pathways when it comes to post-go live for checkpoints and obviously addressing and triaging issues. They're the things and the factors that help you retain a sense of calm as you go through a go live and post-go live. And you're human. I'm human. We all feel it when we're heading into a go live. Absolutely. The anxiety starts to increase. What can tip you over from an anxiety perspective is if no one's thought about tomorrow. So a lot of the time the focus and the success measure and mindset is on delivery, hitting that go live, and people aren't prepared for the next day. And the next day is when the real work starts again, which is issue triage, making sure that people are supported, and embedment, the adoption of the design and solution that you've put into place, whether it be a process, a policy, no matter what it is. It's actually after that initial go live where the rubber hits the road. And if you've got a plan and you are planned beyond that point, then it helps ease the anxiety because you do have availability and you do have the space, and you've created the space purposefully to be able to have those post-go live discussions. In the event that there is an issue that arises that needs to be dealt with, and if you don't have that space created before you go live, you're behind the 8 ball. And very fast you can see if there are issues that there's a scramble, because there hasn't been that level of preparedness that there needed to be post-go live. And calm has a lot to do with how you create that space. Calm helps create clarity. Many people in my career have commented on the calm I have in the room if someone may be a little bit resistant to the change, maybe very vocal about the change, and my ability to withstand that and not engage with it and to be able to be calm in amongst the chaos is definitely an attribute I have pride in, but it has been developed over time. I think experience through going through some tougher implementations where things haven't worked has meant that I have hardened up a little bit in the ability to, my resilience has increased and my ability to deal with issues post go live, because after you've delivered so much change over many, many, many years, you tend to feel like you've seen it all. And the importance of the project structure, but you can definitely influence from the change perspective, is just having the sessions where if you're doing structure changes, I've talked about this decompress session. So if there's a change going through, just having a briefing, a forum, whatever it may be, so that your stakeholders, if they're perceived to be difficult stakeholders, which to be honest, no stakeholder really is difficult. It's just about they may be more vocal. They may be authentically vocal, which I really welcome and almost encourage because they're the people who I trust the most when it comes to feedback. They're trying to tell you how it is. And it's really important to have a listening for that and to work with people who are willing to give voice to the challenges they're facing and not buy into the emotion that surrounds it all, which many people will engage with and take personally around the tone in which that message is conveyed. For myself, what I'm listening for is what's the root cause of this and how can we deliver differently to this group or individual? How can we listen to it? How can we get that feedback and really iterate on what we're delivering to that person to show that we're listening? So take the action, follow up, maybe adopt the approach a little bit or adapt the approach a little bit based on the feedback if you don't have particular constraints, and then play it back to them, involve them, help co-design it, because then their feedback is also a sign of a willingness to lead and to get buy-in. And after you come to the table and you've briefed and you get that feedback, by making those changes, you're sitting back at the table with that person and you're saying, let's do it together. And I think that is really powerful if that hasn't been the case in the past, and it helps build trust. So we know that if you have more trust, you will get higher adoption and you'll get higher level of support, whether it be in leadership or whether it be in the operational areas and those areas impacted. But it's so, so important. And having that sense of calm, and I think part of that is a self-confidence to know that you're not going to take things personally. I remember when I started in my career and I walked into an executive manager's office, and I can't remember what the context was, but he tore strips off me. He just let loose on me. And I was in my early 20s, very green, enthusiastic though. Come out of uni, doing this role, go in, obviously straight away intimidated that I'm sitting in the executive manager's office. And then he has a big go at me to the point where I was in tears at the end of it. Now, you might say, well, what a bully, blah, blah, blah. I think he was having a bad day. And because I was new to the world of business and to organisations, of course, I take it personally. I remember talking to my boss about it because obviously I was very visibly distraught. Conversations happened, as do happen. After that, no problems whatsoever with him. And I didn't hold on to it. Obviously, I have memory of it, very, very faint memory. It was a very, very long time ago. But I just remember, oh yeah, this is what happened. I remember that quite distinctly in my career. And the thing that I remember the most was that someone had a conversation with him and he changed his behaviour. So all kudos to him that he changed his approach because that feedback was given to him. Now, if I had been upset and my manager hadn't had the conversation with him, there might have been a very different thing. And my confidence might have been really, really rocked. But the fact that he did, I can't remember if he apologised, but I certainly know that after that, he was fine with me. Regardless of that, later in my career, and definitely through all of the years and through life experience, not taking things on board has definitely been a strength. It's only when I'm really, really tired or I'm burnt out, and I certainly have mentioned that before, I've had that in my career, that I become uncentered, and that calmness may not always be there. So a couple of things that I always think about with it, if I'm feeling a little bit tipped over, and my other half always says that when I feel like I've been aggressive or I feel like I've been a bit out of line, even on my worst day, it's nowhere near as bad as some others around how it's very, very evident. But in my mind, I know, and in my body, I feel when I'm not centered. And so just reflect on that for yourself about whether even this week, as you go through this week and as you reflect on the week, how many days you kind of felt a little bit uncentered and potentially not showing up as calmly as you would like. And the perfection in calmness and the stillness, which I've talked about East meets West and the benefit of East meets West. And this has a lot to do with meditation, a lot to do with Asian cultures who have, and ancient cultures where sitting in stillness has been a powerful thing. And certainly through my early 20s was when I started to really explore self-awareness, belief systems, meditation, neuro-linguistic programming or visualization, a whole bunch of things. And really what I realized was coming back to breath. I did a Vipassana silence retreat, 10 days of silence, not speaking, and meditation. It was hardcore, I guess, but what it was a real calling to be still. And it was so profound because you are your own teacher. So you're left with your own thoughts, which could be quite scary for some, and certainly was terrifying for me when I decided to go and do that practice. I was terrified of it even when I went in, because obviously I talk a lot, which is why I do this podcast. But it had my understanding of self just drop down that extra level, and the connection and the understanding of the power of breath. Now, I don't know if you do yoga, I don't know what you've explored in that area, but I highly encourage you to understand the power of breath to get you present and to get you out of your head, because obviously a lot of times at work we're very much in the mental space. We're always thinking, we're problem solving, etc. And getting into your body is a great way to become calm and centered. So if I find I'm a little bit anxious, if I find that I'm really stressed, I need to walk on the earth. And the concept, I've heard it more and more and see it more, but maybe that's just because of my own awareness around it. The concept of grounding, so going barefoot on the ground, is very powerful for us as humans. Like, we have a lot of artificial structures around us now. And because of social media and all the tech around us, sometimes we can get quite disconnected from natural forces. And so some people like to go into the bush. Some people like to, especially in Australia, we go bush, or just go barefoot on grass just to get back into our body. And it is really powerful. I do hear and hear a lot of cynicism that can come from people around meditation, yoga. Some people like running to clear their mind. Some people like swimming, ocean swimming. Just the natural elements really do resonate with us as humans, and it's something we've lost over time. So if you're wondering how can you still your mind or connect through, do something physical, not necessarily running on a treadmill in a gym, but it's just important to get into nature. Yeah, of course, it's hard during a workday. You can't just nick off to the bush during the workday. That's not a luxury we have. But I'm just saying connecting to breath can bring you back to that as well and get you a bit centered. And you think about in other scenarios for the doctors who are triaging, that concept of triage, and actually the nurses do it in the emergency room. Now, when you have the go live to a project or program, if there are issues, just think of them, they're like patients that you have to triage. You have to move into certain categories for treatment and for attention. And you can't do that if you're overwhelmed yourself. So it's important to step through and navigate that overwhelm. And you can only do that by being clear on what you're doing. And you can only be clear on what you're doing through that sense of calmness. So the best people during those situations of high pressure and intensity are the ones who can be centered, have the clarity, and lead others through the stress to optimal efficiency. For being able to talk about what priority tag for certain issues, be able to move through to resolution. They are the most powerful people. And you might be that person. I certainly know that in situations of high stress, typically I am able to achieve that cut through with calm. I certainly feel, and it's important also to note, is that when it's stressful, that energy can really drag you down and it can be wearing after a couple of days. And it's important to switch people out during that time as well. So don't have extremely fatigued, tired people who might have worked on a go live there for issue resolution, because they're probably struggling as it is to keep focused. They may not be able to see the wood from the trees, and you do need fresh players from the bench who might have the same level of understanding but who are fresh to come in to see and move the project through this embedment phase. It's very, very important. So if you're doing a major transformation piece, for example, important that you can switch people in and out of different go lives or different milestones so that everyone's fresh and you can keep the momentum going. So in typical fashion, I thought, well, what would each letter stand for in CALM as a process? The first C is for centered. You need to be centered in yourself, regardless of the chaos going around you. I talk about the rock in the ocean that's choppy in choppy waters, but you're the rock in the ocean that's staying there, letting it all wash over them so that you can continue to support everyone. Then altitude would be the A in CALM. And when I talk about altitude, because it's very, very powerful to look at things from a different perspective. And typically you're in the weeds, you're on the ground. You're in amongst it, you're looking around and seeing everything around you. You need altitude to be able to see the bigger picture. And then altitude also helps you get a sense of perspective. So sometimes people will be, the sky is falling, and then someone will ask such a powerful question: how many people are impacted by this issue? Oh, there's 3. Okay, well, we've just cut over or just had a go live for a department of 400 people, and 3 people have raised this as a concern and different concerns. The building isn't burning. And I think that's a really good example of the concept of altitude. L, which I was toying with listening, because I think listening is the benefit you get from being calm. You get to listen at a different level, so you don't engage with the emotion. I'm listening to the words you're using. I'm trying to gauge what's triggering you for that emotive response, and I'm trying to figure out what the root cause is and what we can do to adapt to that. And then I thought, well, maybe actually in this we're talking about leadership, and someone has to lead in the flow of chaos, and sometimes that isn't necessarily the person who has the positional power. If they are irrational, if they're caught up in it, if they're responding emotionally too much, sometimes it takes for someone else to step in and the calmness and the centeredness to be brought back to the table. So don't hesitate to be that leader in that space if that's the case. And then for the M, I would say momentum management. And what I mean by that is that sometimes you need to slow down the momentum, or sometimes you need to accelerate and push through with the momentum. Where if there's minor issues coming up, it's a momentum to recommit. It's a momentum to keep moving forward. Or it's a slow down the momentum. We need to slow down here because we're not fully informed whether we should keep going or not. We need to do more investigation. So we need space to do that, to scope and quantify the issue. Remember the concept of altitude. That is what calm for me exudes. Being centered, altitude to get a different perspective, leadership and listening, I guess, definitely. Listening without emotion, and momentum management and energy management. And that's exactly what calmness creates, is clarity for everyone. I hope this episode has been insightful. I hope it's been reflective for you. And come to my virtualchangemanager.com. We always have so much going on. I always say that. But it's good to get onto the newsletter list so that you can stay across what's going on in the space for change. And I hope you have a wonderful day. And just remember that change matters because your people matter.